country. That is 23%. The economy, you see coronavirus going down. This is what you're talking about here, the job performance on various issues. And there you see foreign policy, border security, immigration are underwater. If you look at Fox News poll 5, there you go. Foreign policy, border security, immigration, still seeing significant approval in the coronavirus. But this is interesting. Joe Biden on the issues, number 6. Is he too liberal or about right? And too liberal is had a significant uptick since December of 2019. Harold, your thoughts on these numbers and where they stand?
Well, he came into office wanting to focus on coronavirus vaccine distribution. The numbers suggest that he's done that. You point to how that is going down. I can't see the polls, the polling data in front of me. But I have to think they now understand, and I would differ with Secretary Bennett just slightly here. President Biden has laid out 1.7, 1.8 trillion as a target now. It was 2.25, so he's come down. The Republicans have put forward 1. So we're in a zone here where we can get something done. I think this president realizes that a bipartisan solution here is more sustainable, and I think he's focused on that. That's whom he is. As he was a senator and even as he ran, he was a moderate. So I think we may be closer than we think. We got to let the edges kind of make their noise and make their points here. But I sense a deal could be reached here sooner than we think. And it may not include the big tax hikes that some have feared.
You know, Molly, it's interesting to see those immigration numbers, border security numbers, considering the fact that very few places are really covering the border like we do, like a few other places do. It doesn't break through in the day-to-day mainstream media stories, and yet it is seeing those numbers drop like a rock.
Right. I think maybe the reality of the situation breaks through, even though the media coverage is so sycophantic and supportive of President Biden. I tend not to put too much into polls, having lived through 2016 and 2020 and seeing how off they were. But I thought it was interesting that, you're seeing this uptick in people who say that he's too liberal. And I do think that the 2020 campaign, we were told that Joe Biden would be very moderate and that he did in his inauguration, he wanted to be a unifier. And then you look at these policies, and if that were true, it would be very easy to have unifying policies. You look at the infrastructure, there's really not an issue on which there's so much consensus, the need for infrastructure. You have a whole host of Republican senators who are more than happy to work with President Biden, and I'm not just talking about Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski or Mitt Romney, but many others as well. The fact that he can't build together a compromise shows that he's not governing as a moderate or a centrist, but as a far left person who's beholden to the far left of his party. And you see that in how he actually handles the border situation, which is not pleasing to a lot of people.
A lot of testimony today from Wall Street titans, among them Jamie Dimon, talking about inflation. Take a listen.
We're going to have a very strong economy as all that spending takes place. But yes, it will raise inflation. I think there was nothing wrong with 1.6%. I would expect it to go considerably higher than that. Hopefully it won't be out of whack and the Federal Reserve will be able to tamp it down. The very important part of this is whatever money we spend, that we spend wisely. If that money is wasted and is not productively spent, we will have more inflation, less productivity, slower growth, and the American democracy will have lost even more credibility in the eyes of the world.
Bill, I've got 30 seconds here, but the U.S. government doesn't have a great track record of spending money wisely.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, Larry Summers, all Biden people, all are sending the same warnings. Look out, ships taking on water, a lot of water.
All right, when we come back, tomorrow's headlines tonight with the panel. Stay here. Molly.
Yes, my headline is that David Chipman, who is Joe Biden's nominee to head the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, said in his confirmation hearing today that he would like to ban the AR-15. That is literally the most popular gun platform in the country, owned by tens of millions of families, and a real sign of how aggressive Biden would like to be against gun rights.
One to watch. Bill.
Yeah, correct myself earlier. The analogy is not taking on water when we talk about these spending bills. There's a torpedo around, and it's named inflation. That's what he needs to look out for. That's what the liberal economists are warning. Headline: year after Floyd is dead, George Floyd is dead. Some solemnity, some commemoration, but mostly murder and mayhem throughout American cities. Some solemnity, some commemoration. Not a good tribute.
Harold.
The passing of Senator John Warner, the late senator and Navy secretary, makes us long for his conscience, his negotiating skills, and his brand of patriotism. The country and our politics would be a lot better.
Panel, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow on Special Report. Thursday, with the COVID crisis really receding, the Biden administration still plans to keep the northern border closed for another month. We'll take you there. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight. That is it for this Special Report. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. Have you seen this show, Fox News Primetime? You really should. It's hosted this week by Lawrence Jones, and he starts right now. Hey, Lawrence.
Thank you, Brett. Great show as always. Good evening, and welcome to Fox News Primetime. I'm Lawrence Jones in New York, and tonight the fight against the permanent pandemic state continues. As states and businesses continue to roll out plans for vaccine passports, some leaders are standing up for privacy and the freedom for Americans to make their own decision about what they do with their bodies and what information they share with the government. Governor Brian Kemp, who is the governor of the governor of Georgia, will be here in a minute. He issued an executive order yesterday banning vaccine passport, and for that, he should be applauded. But the vaccine passport controversy is a small part of the larger discussion about vaccine hesitancy and the culture's push to shame or other those who have not been vaccinated. And before we get started, let's get this out of the way. In no way am I anti-vax. I had COVID last spring, and I just recently, after learning that my antibodies were gone, I got the vaccine. But I have to think about it. I had to do my own research. I had to ask a lot of questions. After all, the vaccines are basically brand new and authorized for emergency use. And even though so far the data surrounding them looks good, that data is still emerging. And I understand the reservations of my community given the way black soldiers were treated during the Tuskegee experiment. I think it's fair that we should be allowed to check if the water is fine before dipping our toes in the pool. The problem is we gave away too many personal freedoms to the federal government at the beginning of this pandemic. We consented to lockdown, mask mandates, travel shutdowns, and once you surrender your freedoms to the state, it will do whatever it can to hold on to them. Want to return to pre-pandemic life? Get the vaccine. Remember when Joe Biden said this?
Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. It's vaxxed or masked.
Now, that wasn't a suggestion. It was a threat. Want your personal freedoms back? Submit to the state. And don't you dare ask any questions. Joining me now, Republican Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp. Governor, thank you so much for joining me. Tell me a little bit about this. There's a lot of talk about these vaccines. You're saying on the state level, you can't do that in Georgia. Why did you make that decision?
Lawrence, I feel like I need to let you just keep preaching. I mean, your message is exactly right. And that's why we took the actions we did in the great state of Georgia from a state perspective, not to mandate the vaccine. We're not going to mandate the kids going back to public colleges in Georgia or K-12 system in Georgia or getting any government service or needing help from the government agencies. We're not going to check to see whether people have been vaccinated or not. Fundamentally, I'm with you on that. People got to get comfortable. I mean, this vaccine, like you said, it is a medical miracle. Operation Warp Speed, what President Trump has done is unreal. But people got to be comfortable with it. The mixed messages that have come out of the Biden administration in many ways left some people uncomfortable. And that's why I've been telling them, make your own decision, talk to your medical provider, your local pharmacist, or someone you trust. I think you getting the vaccine is very honorable for you to tell folks that. I've done it. My family has. I encourage people to do it, but they got to get comfortable with that, and they don't need the government telling them what to do.
Why is there so much pushback on that very question? Because I have to admit, I had a lot of questions before I decided to get the vaccine. And I had to make that in consultation with my doctor. But it seems like a lot of politicians that aren't doctors are telling people what to do. And they haven't answered the questions that the people are legitimately asking.
Well, I think a lot of it, Lawrence, too, is from people that, politicians that are trying to give people advice in a pandemic, or even some doctors that are giving advice that, quite honestly, has been wrong because they're politically motivated. We've certainly seen our share of pandemic politics in Georgia. When I reopened the economy, people accused me of, creating a live death experience. They've disagreed with many of the things we've done when Southern governors and others around the country removed restrictions just a few weeks ago, and President Biden called us Neanderthals. But we've been following the data and we're following the science, but we also know where our people are. And, if the people don't buy into what the government's selling, they're going to revolt. And I think the problem with the Biden administration is they think everybody around the country is like they're acting in New York and D.C. and other places, and that's just not the case. States are different. You should trust the local leaders to make these decisions, and that's what we've been doing in conjunction with our public health officials. And, Georgians know what to do now. They know how to protect themselves. They know the vaccine's available. They know they can get it. They need to get educated and make the best decision for them and their families, and certainly for their children. We don't need the government mandating what someone's child can do.
Speaking of children, Governor, you just signed some legislation saying the kids won't be wearing masks in Georgia. What made you make that decision?
Yeah, really just, again, following the data and science. Actually, it'll be another executive order. We're continuing to pull back all of our restrictions now. We have very few, but one of those things is we go into the summer and look for schools to be back in the classroom in the fall. We're not going to have a mask mandate for our kids. Our teachers have had the ability to get vaccinated. Certainly doesn't keep anyone from wearing a mask. If parents want their kids to wear a mask, or if the teachers want to wear a mask if they haven't been vaccinated, or even if they have, they can certainly do that. But I think the time for mandates is over. Our numbers have plummeted, hospitalizations, percent positive cases. We got to continue to reopen the economy, including international travel. And it's unfortunate there are some that continue to scare people and not want to do that when we know how to defeat this virus now.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Governor, it comes down to choice. Adults get to make the choices, and if they want to take the vaccine, it is available to them. If they decide not to, the state should not punish them. So I thank you for your leadership on this issue, Governor.
Thanks, Lawrence. It is America, the land of the home and freedom reigns.
For now, it is. We got to keep fighting. Thank you, Governor. Big Tech now acknowledging COVID origin may have come from a lab, Facebook tweaking their